Good afternoon, everyone. We're here for today, March 10th, 2020, a docket for the BMZA. Initially, I ask that you please turn off all your cell phones, keep or silence them, talking to a minimum. You know the proceedings are being recorded via audio and visually. The board will vote and make a decision at the end of the docket on each of your cases. You're welcome to stay to hear that deliberation. Otherwise, you can feel free to call the BMZA tomorrow after 9 a.m. at numbers 410-396-4301. Again, 410-396-4301. You will receive your resolution in the mail within about 30 days from today. We ask that you not do any work until your resolution is received, and certainly don't do any work in Baltimore City without pulling the proper permits. We do have some postponements that have already been removed from the docket. Let me ask about, before we get to our consent docket, ask about matters for which people have signed in for opposition. Is there anyone who's here today in opposition to a matter who has not had the opportunity to speak with the applicant about your opposition and would like that opportunity to do so? Okay, going once, and twice. All right, well, we'll move on to our consent docket. When I call your case, please line up to my left. I think there are maybe 3 of them. We will have you all sworn in at one time, and then we'll dispose of your cases individually. First case on the consent docket, 2020-33, 604 East Clement Street, Jim Goebel. Case number 2020-41, 101 through 103 East 21st Street, Mark Manley. Case number 2020-43, 210 North Duncan Street, Philip Scott. You can come on down, sir. You'll be first to the mic, but hold it right there. And guys, come on right behind him. Okay, can we swear the parties?
Raise your right hands, please. Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
All right, call on the case of 2020-33, 604 East Clement Street. Mr. Goebel?
Okay.
All right, this is a request to construct a first-floor rear addition with a second-floor rear deck. Is that correct?
That's,
Okay. Do we have any staff reports?
Mr. French is delayed with the planning department, but we have no report and recommendation for this property. Typically, for single-family properties, the planning department has no comment.
Very well, thank you. Mr. Goebel, is there anything you'd like to add to your application?
Apparently, excuse me, I have cancer, but I'm here. Apparently, if you look, there's double desk here now. Taking the desk down and then closing this portion and the desk on the top, they're making a breakfast enough, a breakfast room. This is a breakfast picture of it. That's what's there now.
That's what's there now?
Yes, sir. And they're going to close this in and make a breakfast room.
A breakfast room?
Yeah, that's what it will be, yeah.
Okay, does that change anything on your application at this point?
No, sir, it does not.
Okay. Is that something you'd like to hand up for the record?
Yeah, you can put that there with it. It's already there, the picture of the lodge and things.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, sir, it's just,
Very well. Well, the board, having heard your appeal, we believe we have sufficient information to approve your appeal.
okay, thank you, sir. All right, thank you.
Have a great day.
Okay.
Calling the matter of 2020-41, 101 through 103 East 21st Street. Mr. Manley?
Yes, sir.
All right, sir, this is a request to use the first floor as a natural health product store. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Do we have any staff reports?
We have no report from planning.
Very good. Mr. Manley, is there anything you'd like to add to your application at this point?
No, thank you, guys. I
All right.
appreciate it.
Well, the board, having heard your appeal, we believe we have sufficient information to approve your appeal. Thank you, sir.
Have a great day.
You too. Finally, case of 2020-43, 210 North Duncan Street, Philip Scott.
Philip Scott, here with the owner, Jean-Pierre.
Okay, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
This is a request to construct a second-floor rear deck and a rooftop deck. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Any staff reports for this matter?
The planning report has no comment.
Very well. Mr. Scott, is there anything you'd like to add to your application
At
at this
this
time?
time?
Very well. The board having heard your appeal, we believe we have sufficient information to approve your appeal.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Oh, there he is.
Turning to our regular docket. Okay. Calling the case of 2020-15, 2401 Aruna Avenue, Jawad Sheikh. (2401 Aruna Avenue). Okay. All right. The opposition is here just in case. Okay, well, humor me. Do you know Mr. Sheikh? No. Okay. So you don't know if he's been here or not.
You see, the last time we had this, then we postponed it.
Let's, I don't know if we're making a record of.
No, we're not. No, not now.
Well, I am. So I just need to know one way or the other.
All right, we'll move on. Let me call case number 2020-37, 2504 Druid Hill Avenue.
I'm sorry, so should we wait or?
I'm going to recall the case,
Oh, okay.
okay? I'll give Mr. Sheikh the benefit of the doubt, and we'll recall it, see if he's here then. 2020-37, 2504 Druid Hill Avenue. Bashir Hajaz? Yes, sir. Come on, sir, in the middle. This is a request to use the premises as 2 dwelling units, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, can we swear the,
Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I
Yes, sir.
do.
okay, do we have any staff reports?
Planning Department has reviewed this application and has no objection. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. French. Okay, Mr. Hajaz, tell us about your project.
So basically, I purchased the house 2504 as a 2-unit. When I tried to get the permit, it was a 1 dwelling. The previous owners designed it as 2 dwelling, which was approved in 2015. You guys approved it, but she did not proceed forward to change it in the record. So it was designed completely as a 2 kitchens, 2 different apartments, 2 different kitchen, different entrance, and so on. And everything was designed by the permits. Everything was designed by, done by the city. And it was approved, as I said, back in 2015 as a 2 dwellings. But unfortunately, the person did not proceed forward to change it on, after they get approval by the hearing.
Okay, what does that document say in terms of the number of
It
dwellings?
it was approved 2015 as a 2 dwellings apartment.
Can you see it, please?
Sorry. And here's also electricity to change it at 2 meters, 1 meter for each apartment.
Could you hand those up?
Yeah. Sorry.
And Mr. Chairman, we have a record of 2 prior BMZA appeals, 09335 and 15319. Both were to approve the property for 2 dwelling units. Both were approved. The first was approved in 2009. The second was approved in 2015. Permits were then not pulled for either one of those approvals, but there is a history of approval for 2 dwelling units. Just no permits to follow up on that approval.
Okay, any questions from the board?
Nope.
No. All right, anything else you'd like to add, sir?
No, thank you.
All right, well, thank you for your presentation.
No problem. Thank you.
Calling the matter of 2020-38, 3106 Prestman Street, Derek Shaw. Good afternoon, Mr. Shaw. This is a request to use a premises as 2 dwelling units, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Can we swear the witness, please?
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Affirm.
Do we have any staff reports?
Planning Department reviewed this application, noted that this property, according to records available to the department, was last authorized for use as a single-family dwelling, which is a permitted use in the R6 district where this property is located, and there were no records accessible to planning staff that would indicate the premises was lawfully converted to a 2-family dwelling unit property. Because the zoning code does not authorize conversions of single-family dwellings to multifamily dwellings in the R6 zoning districts, the Department of Planning recommends disapproval of this application. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Shaw, in light of planning's comments, can you tell us about your project and specifically,
Sure, I acquired the home. It already was set up with two apartments. So we already had 2 kitchens, 2 separate entrances. Everything was pretty much already set up. And it conforms with what's going on in that particular block, because when I canvassed the area and I went around and took a petition, most of them homes are already 2-family dwellings. This was never set up like that.
okay, when did you acquire the property?
I just brought it back in January.
Okay, BMZA. Let me just turn to Mr. Baumgartner briefly. I understand, Mr. Baumgartner, there was a BMZA hearing.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. There's also a petition in the file submitted by the applicant with 6 signatures supporting the use. I neglected to mention that earlier. This property had a prior BMZ, a prior appeal in 1983. That appeal at that time indicated that the property was under single-family use in 1983. However, the city parcel page, which is part of a software platform that we call CCE, indicates that the property was last authorized for use as a multifamily dwelling with 2 dwelling units. I don't see any permits for that. I don't see any other indication as to where that information comes from, but the parcel page does show multifamily with 2 dwelling units.
I paid my registration fee and it said 2 units on it, and that's included in the file too.
So the applicant had also submitted a property registration. However, those 2 programs don't interface. And so property registration would not necessarily indicate the proper zoning. It's a fee mechanism, essentially. But we do have that in the file, that the property was registered for 2 dwelling units, and this is a current registration. Well, it just expired a week or so ago. But we do have that 2-family property registration from year 2019 to present.
Okay, very well, thank you. Any questions from the board? Anything you'd like to add, sir?
No, I just like to get started, just get through the formality of things.
Okay, all right, well, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
That one. Calling the matter of 2020-42, 4207 through 4209 Menlo Drive. Victoria Campbell?
Good morning. Afternoon.
Good morning, afternoon. Ma'am, this is a request to use the portion known as 4207 Menlo Drive as non-accessory adult daycare with 3 staff. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Could you swear the witness, please?
Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Do we have any staff reports?
No, I do not.
I didn't think you would, but these guys might, so.
Planning Department has reviewed this application, noted this property is in the I-1 zoning district, where daycare is only authorized if it's accessory to an existing industrial use of the property. The department notes that there was use of this property as a church or place of worship. However, that would be a non-conforming use in the I-1 district, and the board is not authorized to change one non-conforming use to a different non-conforming use by the zoning code. On that basis, the Department of Planning recommends disapproval of the application unless the applicant demonstrates that the proposed adult daycare center would only serve employees of an existing or impending industrial use of the property. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Campbell, what can you tell us about your project in light of planning's comments?
Yes, it's an adult daycare. It's a psychiatric adult daycare. And in this industrial park, it is the Empowerment Temple, and it's also a People Encouraging People, which is also another psychiatric rehabilitation center. So we work closely with LifeBridge, and in the Northwest District, this will serve as a population to help not only the elderly, but the adolescents that are dual diagnosed with psychiatric problems. Yes, the zone was, the building was used as a church, and we will be servicing the industry population with the Empowerment Temple there. The forum caterer will also be backed by this because it would not only generate revenue for the businesses, but also over 60 jobs in that area. So I'm asking the panel to accept this because it would just make it a better, healthy community in this area with the services that we're going to provide.
So, Ms. Campbell, the way that the zoning code works, and this is true in Baltimore City, it's true in the counties as well, is that there are a list of uses for properties. Either uses are allowed, they're prohibited, or they're what's called a conditional use by this board. Unfortunately, for you today, the use of an adult daycare in this district is just not allowed. So the board doesn't even have discretion to be able to grant this appeal.
So when you, just to ask, because you said adult daycare, so are they based it because of the unsafety on the zone area, or?
None of the above. So in an industrial district, daycares of any variety are just not allowed.
So what about the other daycare that's literally right behind it? Is that-
So there are what's called non-conforming uses of properties. If the daycare has been there for a long time or was there when this property, it may have been zoned differently, they can continue operation. They can't cease operations for more than 12 months, and then that use would go away. So this property was formerly used as a church, which was most likely a non-conforming use. So that church, as long as it stayed active, once it closed its doors for more than 12 months, that church use goes away forever. It can never be reestablished.
Okay.
So that's why something like a daycare, unfortunately, in an industrial district, if it's been ongoing legally, it can continue, but it can't be started anew.
Okay. And most existing adult daycares are churches, so just.
Most churches are not in industrial districts. They're in commercial districts, they're in residential districts. Unfortunately, this property happens to be in one of the few remaining industrial districts within the city.
And if we can show that the adult daycare is being used for the industrial employees, for their parents or for their loved ones with psychiatric, could we continue with the project?
The code is rather comprehensive here, that it has to be something like a factory in which they have a space for daycare for factory employees, something like that.
Okay.
So it would, and all those uses would have to be on this lot, so you couldn't service other uses in neighboring lots to be approved as a daycare
Okay.
under that kind of scheme. If you'd like to testify, sir, you're welcome to come up and state your name for the record.
What's your name?
McConnell.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. I'm stepping up with Victoria because myself and another gentleman own this building. We bought it after the church filed bankruptcy as a deed in lieu, so we bought it from the fellow that had the mortgage. When we talk about industrial zones, this is clearly, we're in an I-1 zone, but this building is not really structured for true industrial use. It's got a 10-foot ceiling. I mean, it's a very low ceiling building. And the good news is there's a lot of parking available. And it's just, we don't see as owners of this building a use that is going to be truly industrial. And when we acquired this from the owner who took it back from the church, we did look at the fact that there was a church operating, that there was a catering company operating, that there's a picture frame retail type of company operating, that there is another mental health facility within this zone also operating. And, you know, as a member of the community, as a property owner, we see the adult daycare as, and I've been to Victoria's existing adult daycare facility, which is, I mean, it was immaculate, it was very well done, it was very well kept, and I understand your dilemma. But what we are asking for here, what Victoria's asking for here is a variance to put this building back in service. It's going to employ, I know that's not your jurisdiction, it's going to employ a number of people, and it's structured, the way it's set up, it's not going to accommodate a warehouse or an auto facility, which is really what's going on in this neighborhood.
And we have plants, and so you can see the building out layout. And the need is there. We have over 70 clients that we cannot bring into the other daycare that's roaming the streets of Baltimore now that need the services. So the service is there. Like, we're licensed currently for 125. I have 70 people that have nowhere to go. And this building is ideal. It's exactly the same setup as my other daycare. And again, we're not talking elderly. We're talking clients that are 18 to 80 with schizophrenia. Rosedale closed down, Rosewood closed down. So these people are going in and out of the hospital, that revolving door. This facility will house, can cater up to 250 clients. The clinicians are on board. We have primary care physician. We have a psychiatrist, a psychotherapist, case management. This is a mini hospital in itself to keep these clients going to their daily structure.
From your description, it sounds like you might be able to make a good argument for rezoning the property. Unfortunately, we can't rezone properties. So the Baltimore City Council can rezone properties. So that's certainly an avenue that would be available to you. I would suggest reaching out to your city council person for that district. I have no reason to doubt anything that either of you have said here today. We simply just don't have the legal authority to approve a rezoning or to approve the adult daycare use. We kept this on the docket thinking that maybe it was there for a while and you had a permit, or there was some other way that that the board might have a legal mechanism in which to approve it. But unless there's something else, unfortunately, I don't. It's for this board to decide. It's not for me to decide.
When did you acquire the property, sir?
On February 4th, I believe, is when it finally closed.
Last month?
It took 6 months to kind of get there, but yeah.
But it was certainly after the zoning
Yeah.
change in 2017. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Is there anything else you'd like to add at this point?
Just ask the board to have an open mind, consider this project. It will employ and will service the community. It will make it a healthy community at the end of the day.
Right, and I agree with Mr. Baumgartner. We certainly applaud your efforts. If there's a way that it could be done, I think the mechanism that Mr. Baumgartner suggested might,
To rezone.
Rezone the property.
and to have that expedited in some way. I don't know what the time frame is, but again, we exercise our discretion when we're in a position to and when the law allows us to do so. And unfortunately, in an exclusion situation where the code is very clear, that this kind of use is not allowed in that zone until certain other things change like a rezoning. We're without authority to grant that relief.
Thank you, sir.
Hang in there and wish you luck in finding
Thank
another
you.
opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you. Calling the matter of 2020-44, 6515 Boston Street, Terrace Slaughter.
Who gets the books?
Hey, y'all.
Pass them out.
These 5 right here.
Thank you, sir.
I'll take your book.
AT&T.
Does anyone need their pad back? Like, that one's bigger. Did somebody mean to give me the one with the zoning docket in the front? I already have the zoning docket.
Either way, I can take it.
Okay.
Wow, nice and pretty. Okay, so, this is case number 2020-44, 6515 Boston Street. It's a request to install a new telecom facility, 190-foot tall monopole with equipment. Is that
Yes.
correct? All right, could we swear the parties, please?
Raise your right hands, please. Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Social distancing.
Do we have any staff reports?
Yes, Planning Department has reviewed this application, noted essentially that the location of this particular proposed pole and antennas is not going to be one that is going to interfere with redevelopment of this area. The department is recommending that approval of this application be subject to these conditions, in addition to any conditions which the board may establish. First, the antennas and related equipment must be as visually unobtrusive as possible. Second, the panel antennas and related equipment will remain mounted as illustrated in plans and elevations submitted to the Planning Department. And third, the applicant will adequately mitigate any adverse effect as specified in the report of the Historical and Architectural Preservation Division of the Department of Planning in accordance with that report's recommendations. Thank you.
Okay. Who is speaking for you? Could you step up? What's your name, sir?
William Rothman.
Mr. Rothman, having heard from planning, should the board be favorably disposed towards your project, are those conditions acceptable to your client?
Absolutely.
Okay, tell us about your project, sir.
Putting in yet another cell phone tower.
Okay.
Mommy wants to know where the kids are, and in today's day and age, I agree with her.
Okay.
Sir, very quick, and this is just for my own edification. Where in the process, especially with the FCC, does local zoning come? In other words, are we your first step before you go through the federal process to approve the tower and all the equipment, or does that process start first and then the local zoning part comes at a later step?
Yeah, I can speak to that.
What was
Essentially,
your
we
name,
can-
sir?
Yeah,
Your
my
name?
name is Ryan Triller. I work for SmartLink LLC, represent AT&T. The way I understand it is there's not an exact process on those kind of things. We try to get all this stuff done as early as we possibly can. So as you said FCC, correct?
Correct.
I do believe that we did file that already, and it's in the process of approval. So
Okay.
we should know very shortly. We don't expect any issues.
Okay.
But to answer your question, yes, my understanding is there's not an exact process. It's just obviously you have to get all these things done before you start construction.
Is this pole a 5G pole? Is it a 4G pole? What's the actual capacity?
It will be a 5G pole, yes.
Okay. And has that gone through any state approval process, if you're aware, from the state of Maryland?
In what capacity?
So I
Yeah.
know that other counties, especially Montgomery County, recently has been dealing with the 5G issue, and I know that there has been extensive efforts on behalf of the industry in Annapolis to allow or to authorize the expansion of 5G services. I'm just curious where, and this is an if you know question. If you don't know, that's completely fine as well. If there has been efforts to expand the approval statewide, or how that might impact us here in Baltimore City.
Well, yeah, once again, my understanding of it is that should not be necessary from this standpoint. Every tower that I've dealt with in Maryland, it deals specifically with the jurisdiction that it lies within. So, of course, here at Baltimore City.
Okay. Sure, absolutely.
Clarify something?
Yep.
My name's Steve Hathaway. I'm an engineer with AT&T. Things get mixed up when we talk 4G, 5G sometimes. 5G is a air interface technology, and we can deploy it in a multiple of different ways. The way we're deploying it at this tower is the same way we deploy 4G, which we use the term macro cell. It's a large tower with antennas that try and reach beyond half a mile, mile and a half.
It's not the microcells that are planted
Right.
every 50 feet or whatever that are on like lower towers.
Right. When I was walking here, I saw a few that are within the city of Baltimore. Those are 5G pods as well, but they're deployed in a different manner. It's the same technology, the same air interface, but what we try and do is lower the power, lower the radiation center, and we try and capture traffic that's right near that pole. The one that we're talking about, we're trying to capture traffic that, like I said, is a half mile to a mile away from the pole.
Okay.
Okay. So hopefully
Thank you.
that helps.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So, Mr. Rothman,
Yes.
will the installation of this pole result in lower cell phone bills? That's a question. If you know, if you don't, it doesn't matter.
I can't. I would have to defer to AT&T.
Okay.
I can't answer that either. Sorry.
Just wanted to put it out there in case anybody had any thoughts.
I have a question that's not about my cell phone plan. How do you choose what site the pole goes? Like, why here?
A necessity for coverage in the area.
Okay.
And just so the record's clear, and so I understand, there's multiple folks here, and I see in your very, very well put together binder, we have some of the federal stuff. We have something from KCI as well. So can folks just identify themselves for the record? That's all, so we know who's here. Yeah.
Excuse me, up to the microphone, so I can, and spell your last name.
Gus Trudson from KCI, last name spelled Truedson.
I'm William Rothman II. I'm with Rokon.
Got it.
I'm Tara Slaughter. I put the binders together. Thank you. I appreciate the notification of that.
Thank you.
Ryan Triller, SmartLink LLC.
Very good.
And I'm Steve Hathaway. I'm with AT&T as an RF engineer.
Thank you.
So I should have directed my phone bill lowering question to you, but understood. All right, is there anything else you'd like to add to your presentation?
We're just dying to get to work. We ain't dug a ditch in 5 months.
Okay. Well, very well. Thank you for your presentation.
I do have a question. You said that you're going to send a notice out within 30 days, but if we'd like, we can hang back and hear
Absolutely.
The real deal. If we hang back and hear the right answer, can we go write the permit for that? Do we have to wait 30 days?
So we write, each decision has to be written up. You're fortunately on a very short docket. We usually have between 20 and 30 cases every other Tuesday. We have, like 10 today? So we have up to 30 days. Typically, they go out in a much shorter time than that. For this particular appeal, probably by end of week. But you need that written authorization from us before you can get your permits. So you're welcome to call to check up probably by Friday, I would say. And then we mail the decision out. I'm looking at my associate counsel because she actually writes them up. Exactly. But we could certainly get, if the board decides to approve the appeal, we could certainly get that written decision out relatively quickly.
Thank you very much. I appreciate all your time.
Thank you, folks. Appreciate it. Okay. Yeah. But let me go back to this first case. Let me recall one other matter, or the earlier matter, 2020-15, 2401 Aruna Avenue, Jawad Sheikh. All right. Okay. Now we will call the case of 2020-40, 2309 Rogine Drive. Oh, yeah, yes, sir, go ahead. Looks like it's a no-show, so we're not recalling the case again. It certainly can't be approved if he's not here. Yes, you're free to go. There will not be an approval of that matter.
If you come back later on,
Well, if he comes back, he'll have to file a notice and he'll get on a docket and you'll all know.
so if he come back, he would have to file paperwork again, and then we had to come back down here
Well,
again.
there would be a new notice date.
So for the benefit of the court reporter, this is off the record since it's just a procedural. The applicant has failed to show. His car might have broken down, who knows? We will reach out to him and find out why he did not appear. If there's a reasonable reason, he'll be put back on a future docket, but he'll have to repost the property for 21 days, and then we'd have a new hearing. It's entirely possible that he's withdrawn his appeal. But we simply don't know at this point.
That's the normal way it happens when we do have a no-show, because we don't know. We do know that things happen.
So we,
Arthur Cook, by the way?
so we can't hear what, Baltimore Planning Academy, I went to the Planning Academy, Baltimore City, Planning Department may have,
So if they have a report, that's part of the public file, and anyone can review that. But since it's the applicant's case to move forward, without the applicant, we can't open the case.
okay, thank you.
One thing, this is our newsletter, since we didn't think we had a
Sure.
neighborhood association, so I think I have enough for everybody.
Okay, thank you.
Anytime you want to feel free, come and join us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. All right. Feel free to read on the cruise.
No.
All right. Calling the case of 2020-40, 2309 Rogine Drive. Mr. Prettle.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. This is a request to reduce the required 30-foot front yard setback by 5 to 7 feet to reflect existing conditions for previously constructed single-family detached dwelling as per survey.
That is correct.
Okay. Could we swear the witness?
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Do we have any staff reports?
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
Very well. Floor is yours, Mr. Spreadle.
Great. Well, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm here on behalf of the recent purchaser, new owner of the subject property in what is a somewhat unusual and unfortunate circumstance, to be honest. I was called by, again, at the time, the contract purchaser of this property who had a closing date of the next day. The property was built under building permit by a separate builder/developer, and it wasn't until roughly a week before closing when the title company picked up through a survey the fact that the house was not built on this vacant lot where it should have been. And they identified it was not the city of Baltimore, and by no fault of the city of Baltimore. It just so happened the title company picked up that the house was.
I'm impressed that the title company caught it.
So was I, to be honest. I'm very surprised. But in the long run, I think it is they were absolutely correct about it. We've since found out that the builder has a less than stellar reputation in the city of Baltimore and is actually no longer permitted to do work in the city.
I have two questions. Who's the builder?
I think it was Emerald Homes. I forget the actual.
Title company that caught the mistake.
I can find that out for you again. I don't know off the top of my head. And I believe that my client had switched title companies at one time. The client has closed on the property between the time that this appeal was filed and today's hearing date. And so the title company would not insure the title on the property. He would not close. The remedy was to file this variance retroactively. In the meantime, there were also several issues with both building permits that were being finalized out as well as an occupancy permit. About 2 weeks ago, we worked with Deputy Commissioner Hessler, Mr. Uttenreither from the Department of Housing, who were wonderful and, again, in a very difficult situation to allow the purchaser, who at the time was living in a friend's basement with his 5 children pending the closing of this property. I mean, again, I can't stress enough how unfortunate this was by no fault of the contract purchaser. So we filed this variance request. It is a unique property on what is a wooded, sloped site, and there are some additional building permit issues regarding a retaining wall permit that have, I believe, since been closed out. But in regards to the variance, again, we're here retroactively to satisfy the title company, because at the time, the owner does not have title insurance until, hopefully the board would approve this, and he's liable for any issues that may come up in the meantime. He is living in the property now, and I mean, that's the long story short. I'd be happy to provide any additional information or answer any other questions, but I would urge the board to approve this and hopefully be done with this issue.
There's an adjacent single-family dwelling next to this property, correct?
There is.
Was it built by the same builder?
It was.
Does it have the same issue?
My understanding is that it does have the same issue. I have no relation to it. I have been, sort of secondhand informed that either the builder or someone will likely have to go through this process. But at this time, I have no relation to that property. But if you were to go out on the site, they are built exactly the same. And that's my understanding.
Is that adjacent property? Are there folks there right now?
I believe it is vacant and for sale. They were built together under, I guess, tandem building permits.
Because it was one lot that was subdivided into 2 single-family lots. Obviously, it's not your client, it's not your case, but we would obviously be very concerned that that property owner would be afforded the same right as the property owner that's the subject of this appeal.
I would say that I hope that whoever ends up purchasing that property does what's required by the city and lenders and title companies, because again, it's not a good situation. I felt terrible for the purchaser to have all this dropped on him a week before he's supposed to move his young family into what he thought was his dream home, and to have all of this come up is quite upsetting. And I'm glad that Mr. Barry, who is out of town, couldn't be here, but both of us were able to hopefully resolve this.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Any other questions from the board?
Nope.
All right, Mr. Prado, thanks for your
presentation.
Thank you. That concludes the docket today. All right.
think we were
Okay,
supported.
let's move. Get up there.
Luckily, consents.
It's like a rerun of the one you had for the same property.
151.
Got a different tenant.
I'll take 151, that's awesome.
What say you, board?
We say, I think we can run through this.
Yep.
So we'll have to cancel those plans for Friday.